Culture change is as old as human history and inevitably necessary for now and for the future. The rise of the Roman Empire, the British Empire, and that of China in the last 10 years was possible because of culture change. The rise of Google, Amazon, Tesla, and Uber required culture change. The success of many business leaders and military leaders required culture change. As part of the Champion series, I'd like to welcome today Martin Kunz, a global business leader from Zurich, Switzerland. Martin, let's start with you now. What is your value proposition as a leader and what makes you unique?
Rainer, thank you very much for this impressive introduction on culture change. I transform globally or regionally operating, often underperforming businesses in technical B2B environments to achieve profitable growth with at least 2 times the average market growth rates through culture change, our topic today, as well as consistent execution and also the development of new business models for the digital future. So one of my distinct strengths is the execution of cross-functional growth initiatives in complex business environments. And complexity might be within the organization, in markets, in geographies, in cultures, or simply dealing with a very complex product range. I offer a unique combination of experiences with demonstrated track record in general management, but also functional experience such as operational excellence, M&A, innovation, service management, and most recently also digitalization.
That is great. Successful culture change is part of your value proposition. Isn't culture change to achieve profitable growth something that many companies and leaders try to accomplish but struggle with the execution?
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. If you look at surveys that are published on a regular basis, there's about 70 or more % of the companies declare to embark on a culture change journey. And often this is initiated by a change in the leadership. So companies want to pursue strategic objectives such as profitable growth, sustainability, innovation, and others through this culture change initiative. But when you look at the results, when they start the journey, what they want to achieve and what is really achieved, the picture looks pretty poor.
That is remarkable insight, Martin. What is your personal philosophy related to culture change? What are your secrets?
A very good question. I think, first of all, there are no secrets at all. It's all about, I think, consistent execution and experience. I strongly believe that culture change is not something that senior leaders decide behind closed door and say, now we want to change the culture of an organization. When you look at the complexity of a culture, it's beliefs and behaviors that have been established over a long period of time, often decades. That can't be changed so easy because organizations and individuals are resistant to culture change. So I think it's about a consistent execution of culture change practices to change the beliefs and also the behavior of the individuals in the organization. And that has to happen at all levels in the organization and also in all areas. And ultimately, a culture change is successful when you can change the beliefs. And that requires a lot of perseverance, but also ongoing, consistent execution.
I cannot agree with you more. Can you provide practical examples how you use these culture changes practices to successfully achieve profitable growth?
Sure, I'm pleased to do so. I've just picked a couple of impactful practices that I've implemented over my career. I would like to start with visualization practices. So we learned from Six Sigma and continuous improvement that human beings react to visualization. They can change their behaviors more based on visualization than, for example, words. So if profitable growth is important to you as an organization, make it visual. So I've made very good experience with a project that I implemented in my area of responsibility with my team, where we installed big TV screens and really displayed on a regular basis information that was relevant for profitable growth, such as our sales and order performance, on-time delivery, quality performance, and also customer success stories, winning a new customer or developing an application with an existing customer. So put the customer in the center of the activity and make your profitable growth results visible. Second example, cross-functional collaboration. I mean, when you look outside your customer-facing functions, go into operations, quality, finance, HR, and ask the people in these functions what they know about the profitable growth strategy and plans of the company, you might be surprised how little they know and how little they know about the customers. So one a very successful initiative that I implemented in one of my leadership roles was sending people from non-customer facing functions out to spend time with customers, understand the customer needs, and then return to the organization with a different picture of the customer in the center of the activity. And we work for our customers and we want to all improve our customer experience. Next example is quality. Don't think that quality is just something your quality department is in charge of. It's cross-functional by nature. If you improve your quality, you improve the trust of your customers and your salespeople into your products. And quality is not only about product, it's also quality of, for example, transactional processes, how you deal with customers. I can only recommend that quality shouldn't be focused on what is your warranty cost and what are your defective parts per million of products supplied. It goes much deeper. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Make your quality improvements visible and share them with customers and employees. And the last example, which was actually an example that I learned in my first global P&L leadership role, is how do you change the behavior of salespeople? So let's imagine you want to embark on a culture change journey in your sales force and say, we go from farming to hunting. That sounds very nice. So you go after new customers than just farming your existing customers. But how do you achieve it? I can recommend here as a culture change practice to go into your incentive structure and implement a different incentive system so that salespeople and sales leaders get incentivized in a different way for sales they achieve with new customers. This can also work if you want to shift within the product range, promote new products, etc. But very important starting point is the new customer.
Thank you for sharing these amazing insights. And is there a structured method available to better understand what is required to make culture change successful? Something that also younger leaders can learn from, Martin?
It's a great question, and unfortunately there isn't a silver bullet that guarantees the success of culture change initiatives. And you get different answers depending on whom you ask as a leader to this question. I can only speak for myself and my own experience. So I was very much inspired by the book Change the Culture, Change the Game by Roger Connors and Tom Smith, which I used for a culture change initiative in one of my previous leadership assignments. This book doesn't give the answers to all the questions around culture change. And I think it's probably not the purpose of the book, but it's a great starting point when you want to understand a methodology or a framework about culture change. So you start with understanding your current culture, the results that are produced by this culture, and then the behaviors and beliefs that lead to these results. In the next step, you define what are your desired results that are an outcome from the new culture. You define the new culture, and then you work really on the beliefs and behaviors in a transformation of your culture towards the new culture that then produces your new results. It's a great book just to make aware of the complexity of culture change. But then when we come to the execution, it's all about these culture change practices. They play a fundamental role in the culture change journey.
Excellent. Let me ask you another question. Which changes require the application of culture change practices?
Another very good question, and it depends really, I think, where you are as a company and in which industry you are. But as a general rule, I would recommend that all profound changes, let me say, that prepare for a different future and require the changes of long-lasting mindsets and beliefs should be managed as culture change projects. I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, the development of new digital business models in a traditional industrial product company. Or when you want to make your product innovation more agile, for example, through the implementation of a method like Scrum. Or many companies have the challenge today to change from a product selling to solution selling. That's a big step. So here I would also recommend, let me say, to manage this as a culture change project. Or what we often see is also our distribution channels are changing. Distribution models are adjusted to new realities. If you implement an e-commerce platform because you want to change from a B2B company to become partially a B2C company, that's a big change. Such an e-commerce platform is a massive culture change for an existing organization and should be treated as a really culture change project.
Thank you for sharing these excellent examples of the application of culture change practices. My question is, in which industries do you see the largest potential for culture change driving future improvements?
I think I cannot speak for all industries, but I spent a lot of years in engineered products. So I see a huge need and also a big potential for culture change in traditional manufacturing industries, not only in the context of digitalization, which is progressing, but there might be new players coming in from outside the industry. Some changes will be fast, other changes might be slower, and companies can adjust to it. I would like to give you a practical example. When we look back at the year 2019, who would have thought that in 2020 and 2021, up to 80% of the customer visits would be virtual rather than face-to-face? So I'm talking about virtual selling, which was a culture change that was really impacted from the outside through something called COVID-19 global pandemic. And this is a good example where the industries had to react with a high sense of urgency to this culture change being imposed.
That is really amazing, Martin. And how important are local cultures and languages?
I mean, that's a very interesting question, because when you speak about one company culture, that simplifies the discussion around culture change too much. Every organization has a main culture, but there might be an endless number of subcultures. They often come from previous acquisitions or mergers or whatever. So, and we shouldn't forget, there are also local or national cultures that have an impact on our main culture. So if you want to change your main culture, you also need to have in mind which changes in your subculture are required to make the change in your main culture successful and efficient. You mentioned languages, great example. I'm a big fan of languages, despite the fact that English is the universal business language. We might not reach all the employees with a culture change message with one language. So there are and there will be employees in the organization who don't need to be proficient in English to perform their task. So I think local languages and transmitting, communicating the culture change message in local languages will be and will remain of really fundamental importance.
Great insights. And we are coming now to an end. What are your main takeaways on culture change or to achieve profitable growth?
I think first of all, recognize that human behaviors are driven by beliefs. If you want to change behaviors, you need to change the beliefs of the people. That's the fundamental aspect of culture change. And the culture change practices are the vehicles, the instruments to make this change of human beliefs happen. I would also say that involving all your cross-functional collaboration in your profitable growth plans is important, as well as making the achievements and accomplishments of your culture change journey visible on a permanent basis. Don't forget about the customer. The customer has to be in the center of your activities. And last but not least, don't forget that successful culture change requires time, a lot of energy, and very consistent execution.
Martin, thank you very much for being available to speak about this very exciting topic.
Thanks, Rainer. It has been an absolute pleasure for me sharing my experience about culture change for profitable growth with you today in this interview. Thank you very much.
The pleasure was all mine. I look forward to you making headlines by leveraging the power of culture change in 2021 and beyond. I know you are a passionate musician. Let's rock and roll.